Okay, I am Gary Obligacion. I was a 2019 speaker at the Welcome Conference in New York City, back when we could do, 1,000+ person events and kind of hang out in person together and interact. I am a 36-year hospitality professional. When I spoke at the conference, I was actually the general manager of Post Ranch Inn in Big Sur, California, but I have recently relocated away from Big Sur to the beautiful city of Chicago in a new role as director of development, I guess, for the Alinea Restaurant Group here in Chicago. And it's really kind of fun. It was my speech when I was in Lincoln Center was about leftovers. And it was an interesting, well, I thought it was an interesting subject, but I talked about how kind of the idea of leftovers was putting together a lot of disparate parts, putting together with intent, and having that be the driving force for a gracious act for someone else. And how it wasn't just what do you have in the fridge, it's what do I have that I could put together and make something wonderful for you. I'm lucky enough today to have Mr. Baxter Holmes joining me in conversation. Baxter is a senior writer for ESPN on the digital and print sides. He's covered the world champion Los Angeles Lakers. He's covered the Boston Celtics, which I will not name as being world champions, even though they have been a couple of times. He has previously worked for both the Boston Globe and the Los Angeles Times. And of course, he's a proud Oklahoma Sooner. And I'm going to read this part because I think it's just fun. And in 2017, Holmes garnered national acclaim for his award-winning ESPN the magazine feature, The NBA's Secret Addiction. His piece won the prestigious James Beard Foundation Award for Excellence in the feature reporting category. The story was also included in the Best American Food Writing of 2018 book. My favorite thing about that was about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which I thought was the coolest thing. Baxter, while being an award-winning journalist, happens to be friends with all my friends. And so as we met, it became easier and easier. Baxter, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm honored to be with you. That is an incredibly kind and warm introduction. I'll try to live up to all the good stuff, but the Welcome Conference, I'm a huge fan along with many others. So the fact that you guys had me here today is I'm very humbled by it for sure. And it's great to see you again. I mean, I know we saw each other in Big Sur. I know we're in the pandemic, so time is a weird thing. It was at some point, somewhat recently, had a fantastic dinner and conversation at Nepenthe. And so it's great to see you in the flesh again. And yeah, I'm excited about your new venture, or going back, I know, to Chicago, your old stomping grounds. I've seen some familiar faces there. Lucky to have you.
Thank you. Well, what was interesting when I was, the Welcome Conference reached out to me and said, who do I want to talk to? I was harking back to just that dinner and how we were just kind of rolling back and forth and didn't want the evening to end. I think we had a 3.5-hour meal, which that's supposed to be a 45-minute there. But either way, great times.
Yes, it was.
For those who aren't aware, this is one of the conversations going on for the virtual Welcome Conference. The Welcome Conference normally would happen in June in New York, and there were lofty plans for what was going to happen in 2020, where Welcome Day was going to happen, 6 different events. And they've shifted to a 5-month virtual conference where it's going to be a variety of different concepts. Grit was the first month. We're in the month of collaboration right now. And I wanted to have just a deep conversation with you about collaboration. And I think that it's one of those things that you and I can kind of just enjoy talking about. And the first thing I'd say, what is the definition of collaboration for you?
Yeah. So as a writer and as a reporter, those two things are often pretty solitary pursuits. People think about that. Like, I have an idea, maybe an editor greenlights it, or it's my, it comes from them or it comes from me. And then it's my job to go out and get it, right? To get all the information, to gather the ingredients and then make something up that then goes out in the world. And you really feel that onus on you to, at least early on in my career, to do it all of yourself. But one of the things I realize is that the art of collaboration is working with the people around you to bring a singular thing to its full potential. So when I think of collaboration, I really think of tapping in to the expertise and different strengths of other people and kind of getting over your own ego in this sense that you can do it all yourself, because you have to surrender to that in a way and understand that whatever it is you think you can do all by yourself, it would actually be better if you work with others, if you tap into their strengths, their expertise. And this was something that I learned. There were definitely speed bumps early in my career, but as I think about that now and the people that I've worked with, I think of collaboration in that way, like tapping into the strengths, expertise, talent of those around you as you move towards the common goal of trying to make something reach its fullest potential.
It's interesting you put it that way, because obviously in hospitality, for most of us, for many of us who are on the restaurant side, uh, the cooks don't go to the tables, and the waiters don't cook the food, and you are really reliant on the expertise of others to make sure that product comes together, and you couldn't do it without the others, period. It couldn't happen.
Yeah.
Would you say yours is the same?
Yes, it is. It is true. It takes a village, so to speak. Like for what I'm doing, I need, on certain large stories, I'm going to need editors. I'm going to need to work with the illustrators, with the photographers. I'm going to need to work, like with ESPN, I'll need to maybe work with our broadcast team if we're going to be doing different Sports Center segments or outside the line segments, providing tidbits of information so that their anchors and on-air talent can be well prepped and prepared and all of that. But and yes, it absolutely does take that. But when you're in my position of like maybe being left alone, one of my editors refers to it sometimes on some of these big stories I do. He says you kind of go out into the wilderness, and so it's true. Like I will kind of wander off alone and navigate my way through what I think is a good story, and I have to come back and then collaborate with a bunch of people as to what it is I've found, right? As to what it is there, and then we talk about it and try to find the best way to bring that story. You know, like what's the best way to tell this story? Is it going to be a long form thing? Maybe it should be a feature on television. Maybe it should be a podcast or something like that. But it does take a village. But I think early on, and I do think about things a lot. You know, you talked about me having a lot of friends in your industry. I do think about things a lot with respect to the restaurant industry. I think that food is a great vehicle and way to explain a lot of things in how the world works. When I go to speak to college classes, sometimes about journalism, I actually use a parable about chefs and cooking to try to explain reporting and how vital reporting is to people, which we can get into maybe at some other point. But yes, it does. It is. Well, you want to get into it now?
I want to hear the parable.
All right, okay. So this is what I say to college students, right? Because early on when I was coming up, I thought that great stories were all about great writing, and I didn't know what happened behind the scenes, right? Because all you see when a great story comes out, maybe when you see a great documentary, you just see the footage. You don't, you just see the words. You don't see anything else. And as I get into it, I learn it's all about the reporting, the gathering of information. So what I tell college students and writing workshops and things is this. I say, I could be the greatest chef in the world, the greatest, the most talented, the most experienced, whatever. But if I have bad ingredients, if I have poor ingredients, that meal is not going to be very good. Whereas you, student, you could be not necessarily a chef, like you just know how to read a recipe and maybe not burn the kitchen down. But you are excellent at hunting down the best ingredients, going to the farmer's market, getting the freshest this, the most flavorful that, whatever, and pulling those things together. I said, and those ingredients are going to make you make a better meal than me if we were going head to head 100 times out of 100, 1,000 times out of 1,000. I said, the greatest stories I've ever read are from the greatest reporters. And the reason that they're well written is because the information is so fascinating and so compelling. And so I try to explain a lot of things through food and things I've learned about your wonderful industry, because I think there's so many lessons for so many other industries, and I've certainly applied many of those to myself. But yes, look, there's times when I'll watch how a kitchen works and you see the synchronicity and flow of movement of all these people working in tandem to really curate a special experience. And if one of those people is kind of off or they're not on the same page, it's like a link in the chain, it kind of falls apart. And it does, and I think about that with respect to what I do. Like there does need to be great flow of communication and a bunch of people working in tandem and being on the same page to really, especially if it's like a big complicated story, which are the things I work on, complicated investigation, it needs to be that way in order for the train to run on time, to arrive at its destination, and for it to be, reach its, like, whatever, as I said before, its fullest potential, to make a magical story that's going to be worth your time. That's going to be something that you'll remember. And that's something I always think about. And I think it's true for great restaurants. They stay with you. That experience you'll never forget. And I often am thinking about that. Like you guys, you don't just like nourish people with food, you provide them a memory during a time when people's attention spans and memories, like they're fleeting. It's like, it's so short. So I'm often thinking of that, like I'm fighting for people's memory. And it takes a lot of people working together to be able to do that. I couldn't do that on my own.
No question. You reminded me of a story, actually, when you touched on the greatest chef in the world. I use that exact example in talking to relatively new people in the industry, in restaurants, normally servers or that type of role, who don't understand that every single role is important. And the example that I point out is that no matter how talented the chef, no matter how good the food may be, if there's no clean plate to put that food onto, then it doesn't matter. So the dishwasher is every bit as important, if not more so, than anybody else. I mean, it's just a critical role. And you don't think of how much collaboration happens or how much of a team sport these things are, these pursuits.